There's a specific kind of silence that comes after years of noise. It's not the sudden silence of a power outage. It's the gradual silence of a phone you've stopped checking. The silence of group chats you left months ago. The silence of birthdays that pass without a single notification. And here's the strange part. You realize you don't miss hearing from anyone at all. You didn't plan this. You didn't wake up one morning and decide to burn every bridge in your life. It happened slowly, one unanswered text at a time, one declined invitation after another, until eventually you stopped pretending. You stopped explaining. You stopped showing up for people who never showed up for you. Maybe you recognize this. Maybe you are this person, the cold one, the one who changed, the one who cut everyone off, the one people whisper about at gatherings you're no longer invited to. But what they don't see is that you were already alone in those rooms long before you actually left. Today on Why Psychology, we are diving deep into the mind of the person who chooses isolation. We're looking at why ghosting the world is sometimes the only way to save yourself. Let's look at the math. Because for you, it became a cost-benefit analysis that simply didn't add up anymore. You weren't always like this. In fact, you were probably the most available person in the room. You were the friend who drove for hours at midnight because someone was having a crisis. You were the one who remembered the small details, the birthdays, the anniversaries. You asked, "How are you?" And you actually stayed to listen to the answer. You were the emotional anchor for everyone around you. But what happens when the anchor needs a place to dock? You had your own 3 a.m. moment. You had a crisis, a loss, or a period of depression where you couldn't hold the weight anymore. You reached out. You whispered for help. And you were met with nothing. Maybe it was a "sorry you're going through that" text that felt like a slap in the face. Maybe they said they'd call and never did. Maybe they were just too busy right now. It wasn't that nobody came. It was the realization of how invisible you had been while you were busy making everyone else feel seen. That's when the equation changed. You realized you were pouring from an empty cup into vessels that were never meant to be filled. They were just bottomless pits of need. So you stopped pouring. And when the free service stopped, people started calling you cold. The blueprint of abandonment. Psychology tells us that this behavior rarely starts in adulthood. It usually has a blueprint. If you find yourself cutting people off easily, chances are you learned early on that dependency is a liability. Maybe you were the child of a parent who was physically there but emotionally absent. Or perhaps you lived in a home where love was a transaction. You were loved only when you were high-achieving, quiet, or helpful. You learned that your needs were a burden to others. You learned that if you cried, it made people uncomfortable, so you stopped crying. If you asked for help, you were told to figure it out, so you became hyper-independent. This hyper-independence isn't a personality trait. It's a trauma response. Your nervous system adapted to a world where help was a myth and staying was optional. You became a detective of abandonment patterns. You can see the exit signs before anyone else even knows the party is over. Now, in your adult life, you see the pattern repeating. You see the friend who only calls when they need a favor. You see the partner who loves you until you're no longer easy to be with. Your brain says, "I've seen this movie before. I know how it ends. Everyone leaves. So this time, I'm going to choose the exit. I'm going to cut the cord before they can drop me." The slow fade and the hard cut. There are two ways people like us leave. There's the slow fade. This is when you just stop initiating. You stop being the one to text first. You stop suggesting plans. You wait to see if they'll notice your absence. Most of the time, they don't, not for months. And by the time they do, you've already mourned the friendship and moved on. Then, there's the hard cut. This is the ghosting. No big fight. No dramático explanación. Why? Because explanations require an audience that is willing to listen. And you spent years being unheard. Why give a final speech to people who never valued your voice in the first place? You move to a new city and don't tell anyone. You delete social media without a goodbye post. You become a ghost in your own life story. People call it toxic, but you call it peace. You aren't running away from them. You are running toward a version of yourself that doesn't have to perform anymore. the sound of quiet peace. The world thinks you're lonely. But there's a massive difference between loneliness and solitude. The loneliest you ever felt was when you were surrounded by people who didn't know the real you. The loneliest you ever felt was lying next to a partner who felt like a stranger. Now, your solo holidays, your quiet birthdays, your empty inbox, they don't feel like a tragedy. They feel like a sanctuary. You've realized that being alone is the only time you're truly safe from the cycle of expectation and disappointment. You're not hating on people. You're just done. You're done bleeding for people who never even noticed you were wounded. You're done being the emotional labor for relationships that only work when you're the one doing the work. Some might call it a wall, but maybe it's a gate that is currently closed because the garden inside is tired of being trampled on. It needs time to grow back. It needs time to be tended to by the only person who has ever truly been there. You. If you're the one who cut everyone off, I want you to hear this. You are not a villain. You are not broken beyond repair. You are just a human being who finally decided that your peace was worth more than a hollow connection. You gave the chances. You did the work. You forgave until you ran out of excuses. You weren't too sensitive. You were just paying attention. Cutting people off isn't the absence of love. It is the presence of self-preservation. It is your soul finally saying, enough. Enough shrinking to fit into spaces that weren't built for you. Enough accepting crumbs and calling it a feast. Maybe one day, the right people will show up. People who see your value without you having to prove it. People who offer a hand before you have to beg for it. But until that day comes, enjoy the quiet. Respect the boundaries you've built. Because for the first time in your life, you aren't waiting for someone else to show up for you. You're finally showing up for yourself. Thank you for watching Why Psychology. If this story felt like yours, please share your journey in the comments. Let's create a space where we can be alone together. Don't forget to like this video if it helped you feel seen, and subscribe to join our community. Take a deep breath. The silence is okay. You're safe now. Until next time.